All right, so we're gonna start with the rapid fire round. The first question is, so you can only answer with one word or one sentence, and you can say pass in case you don't want to add something. At what age do you want to retire?
Ideally never.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
2 minutes, because I'm a mom of triplets.
Favorite color?
Purple.
What time of day are you most inspired?
1 in the morning.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
Gosh, 30 minutes.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming technology trend is blank.
Artificial intelligence.
How do you relax?
Painting.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
At least 3.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
To be resilient.
So going on to the bigger questions, which you can answer with as much ease and next as you like. So could you tell us about the work you're doing and what brought you to the next step?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently working on 2 books. One will be released early next year, 2024, about neurodiversity and specifically about this concept called neurodiversification. It's we had a really interesting time yesterday. Do you want me to talk a little bit about the book itself and what neurodiversification is? So neurodiversity is, as for those that don't know, is a strength-based perspective on different types of cognitive typologies, including autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and others. And it originated, Judy Singer was the sort of the person that coined the concept neurodiversity back in the late 1990s. And the idea was really that it was sort of more similar to biodiversity, where we're thinking about different kinds of minds in a way where it's really more like there's a normal variation of different kinds of minds. And so it's a strength-based perspective rather than a sort of what we would call a deficit-based perspective. And I'll just give you a quick example. Like, if think about like ADHD, we can think about ADHD in terms of like impulsivity, in terms of being distracted, in terms of not wanting to do like a lot of really tedious tasks. Or we could see like the flip side of that tends to be, someone who's extremely energetic, very innovative, creativity, a lot of creativity, a lot of energy. And in fact, there's, some research out there about that just entrepreneurs in general, that there's a lot of overrepresentation of neurodiversity in entrepreneurship. And then neurodiversification, that's actually a concept I came up with in conversations with my husband, who's also an ADHDer, and he works in finance. So he used to be a portfolio manager. So he thinks about, he talks a lot about just, downside risk when you have assets that are all highly correlated, right? So anyone that has a retirement portfolio of investments, you're probably constantly told by your advisor, like, make sure that, you have your assets you have some that are uncorrelated, right? And so, I've been thinking, very differently about a similar concept, more in terms of like how employers, especially when you look at where things are going in the future, in terms of work, in terms of how the influence AI and other emerging technology is going to have, is that, employers need to diversify their talent pool. And so then, I came up with, I've been talking about this term neurodiversification, and it came out of these conversations with my husband, him having a very different background. And the idea is that, it's really, really important that there's, for any company or organization, whether it's a startup or a Fortune 500 company, that, you diversify your talent pool. And then, the truth is that if there is, if all of your team members or especially even at the leadership level, if they're all highly correlated in terms of like analytical, perceptual, cognitive skills, and there isn't that kind of diversity of thought or problem-solving skills, that's a risk for your company. And in fact, there's been so much research done about, just like looking at like a lot of the biggest business disasters. There's so many business failures that have happened and other disasters that have happened due to groupthink. And so, there's a lot of research, particularly about even autistic people, that they're far less prone to be as influenced by social status. And so I think, having neurodivergent people on your team is going to make your business better. And there's going to be that hedge against groupthink. There's going to be, different types of problem solving skills. There's research about just with dyslexia, ADHD, autism, enhanced creativity that can be brought to the team. And going forward, thinking about just where things are going with AI and automation, that's going to be more important than ever, in my opinion.
So could you talk a bit about how AI is going to influence this?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, AI and then other, emerging technologies, VR, AR, data science, machine learning. I think it's already happening, but I think, as we continue on, looking further into the future, it's going to be embedded in every aspect of our lives, right? And I think it's an interesting thing because I'm not sure many organizations, companies, and educational institutions are prepared for that. I don't think they are. I think that we should all be working faster to adapt to this new world, how things are evolving anyway in terms of AI. And so from like the workforce development perspective, this is the first time in history where there's going to be some jobs that will be taken over by AI that involves cognitive work, right? We've seen, in the past, there's been other types of jobs that have been replaced due to new technologies or automation, but this is kind of a new thing, and so what I think to me, what I think is obvious is going to happen is that it's so important that we all learn to develop critical thinking skills. We maybe put a higher priority as educational institutions on creativity, on innovation, thinking out of the box, experimentation. The model that we've had for the last 100 years isn't going to work anymore because so many, any skills that can be replaced by an algorithm will be, right? So we need to learn to work alongside machines and how to operate them and have, more educational opportunities and upskilling. And I think employers and industry is going to need to work more closely, much more closely than they have in the past with universities and colleges, including community colleges in the United States, which I have several leadership positions in. And I think then also this neurodiversity, being really conscious about including neurodivergent people who because of how they think that there's going to be just more innovative types of or different types of problem solving and analytical and perceptual tendencies that they can contribute to an organization. And so including people that in the past have unfortunately been marginalized is not only going to be good for those individuals because the employment rates are not great for the neurodivergent population. They're actually really poor. But it's going to be a win-win because it's going to be critical to the companies and the organizations themselves for them to survive.
And are these some of the points your book touches upon? Could you tell us more about what your book touches?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my book, I have a framework where I'm offering the reader, sort of a tour towards, what neurodiversity is, examples of the enhanced innovation, different types of thinking, lateral thinking, nonlinear thinking, visual spatial thinking, reverse engineering, lots of skill sets that are actually really, really important to innovation, right, in entrepreneurship, and why that's valuable to companies. And it's really at the heart, it's a values-driven approach to diversity and inclusion. And then I get into more of the sort of like nuts and bolts of what you can do as a leader or, even as a teammate or an ally in an organization. Like everyone can play a role in helping to include neurodivergent workers. And I call it authentic neurodiversity inclusion because it's not helpful if you hire neurodivergent people and it's just about ticking the boxes. Like that's not where you get the benefit of this amazing, unique talent. Okay, you want to authentically include individuals and welcome them. And there's a number of strategies and tactics and templates and exercises, practical tips that I give to leaders, to employers, to organizations of how they can welcome neurodivergent talent, get the most out of all of their employees, and really build a strong organizational culture.
Could you give us an example of one such strategy?
Sure. Yeah, so there's, I think it's important to, first of all, adopt what I would call neurodiversity-friendly policies, and also think along the lines of universal design principles. And so, again, an example that's not neurodiversity specific, but I think most people can relate to is when ramps were developed, right? It was initially to make the world more accessible for people in wheelchairs, but it benefits everyone. Like, there's so many people that are beyond, people in wheelchairs, that it's really critical. I remember, so I'm a mom of triplets. I remember, when my kids were babies and having our triple stroller, right? Can't go upstairs with a triple stroller. So just making, thinking more broadly about how to make your environment more accessible. And so for neurodivergent people, that can mean if it is required to work in person, and we could get into that, that's another issue that could be important for this population. But if that is a requirement or important, or if it's a hybrid arrangement, something as simple as having a quiet room, right, available. There's a number of autistic people that experience what we'd call sensory overload, could be very sensitive to sounds or light, and just, being flexible, right? Being flexible with allowing for breaks, sensory breaks, having some more control over the lighting where that person is working, flexible policies about use of headphones. And again, this going back to universal design, this doesn't necessarily have to be just for neurodivergent employees. If you have a flexible policy and that all employees can benefit from, because there's going to be employees that, are just going to work better, right? If they can use their headphones, then the idea is to focus on outcomes and deliverables, and to be more flexible on how to get there in the processes. And then, along with that, I'd say that being flexible whenever possible with either remote or hybrid working also is a really important to attract this kind of neurodivergent talent. There's so many neurodivergent people that won't be attracted to an opportunity unless that a kind of flexible arrangement is offered. So it'd be in the employer's best interest to do that. And then finally, hire neurodivergent people, not, at all levels of the organization, including leadership. Neurodivergent people don't make just good contributors, they make great leaders. In fact, many of our throughout history, many of our great innovators and entrepreneurs and leaders have been neurodivergent, whether they disclosed or not. So there's a lot of really exceptional people out there that could really drive a company right to the next level. And it also, if you have someone in leadership that's neurodivergent, that sends the message to the world and to other neurodivergent people that you are a neurodivergent friendly place. And that's going to attract other neurodivergent workers and talented people that you will want to hire. Hi, I'm Maureen Dunn. I'm an upcoming author, a book being published by Wiley in early 2024. And catch me on the Technologists of the Month podcast.